Leora walked through the market, her eyes wide with wonder. The city was unlike anything she had ever seen. Towers stretched high into the sky, glowing with soft lights, and alien voices echoed from every corner. Stalls lined the streets, selling strange fruits, glowing fabrics, and small machines that hummed and blinked. Humans were rare here, and she felt both nervous and excited as she moved among the crowd. Most of the shoppers ignored her, too busy haggling or talking. Leora was careful to step aside when a tall, four-armed alien passed, carrying a basket of fruit. She smiled politely, though the alien only grunted in reply. She had always been fascinated by aliens. They were so different from humans, but somehow, in the busy market, she felt at home. Then, without warning, a loud, piercing scream cut through the noise. Leora froze. She turned toward the sound and saw a small alien child running in circles, screaming at the top of his lungs. The child had silver-blue scales that shimmered in the sunlight and wide eyes full of fear. Shoppers jumped out of the way, spilling baskets and knocking over jars. Some of the jars broke, spilling liquids that glowed like liquid fire onto the cobblestone street. The child's screams were getting louder, almost unbearable. Aliens nearby tried to catch him, but he wriggled out of every hand. One alien mother scolded him, her voice sharp, but it only made him cry harder. Leora watched, her heart tightening. She could feel the child's fear as if it was her own. Most humans would have panicked. Most aliens would have shouted or grabbed him roughly. But Leora felt calm. She stepped forward slowly, holding her hands out. "Hey, it's okay," she said softly, her voice gentle. The child turned to look at her, his eyes wide and full of terror. For a moment he froze as if he didn't know whether to trust her. Leora crouched down to his level. "It's okay. I won't hurt you," she said, and slowly she reached out her arms. The child hesitated for a moment, trembling, then almost instinctively he ran into her hug. Leora wrapped her arms around him carefully, holding him close. The screams didn't stop immediately, but slowly they faded into hiccups and soft whimpers. Leora rubbed the child's back gently, humming a tune from her own world. Around them the market grew quiet. The crowd stared. Aliens whispered to each other, astonished. They had never seen a human calm anyone, let alone a frightened child. Who is this human?" one alien muttered. "She just stopped him," another whispered, eyes wide. The child's small hands clutched at Leora's shirt, and she could feel his tiny body shaking. "Shoo, it's okay," she whispered. "You're safe now." Slowly the tension left his body and his breathing became steady. The glow in his eyes dimmed and he looked up at her, no longer screaming, just curious. A few brave aliens approached, curious but cautious. "This is remarkable," one said softly. "I have never seen this child calm down like this." Leora looked around, suddenly noticing the mess. Broken jars, spilled liquids, scattered fruits. She stepped back slightly, letting the child sit on the ground in front of her. "It's okay," she said, brushing some spilled fruit aside. "Don't worry about it." The child looked at her, his eyes bright but still wary. Then, slowly he reached out a small hand and touched her arm. Leora smiled. "See? You're okay," she said. "No one is going to hurt you." The crowd continued to watch in silence, unsure of what to do. Guards appeared at the edge of the market, moving quickly but carefully. They were tall, armored, and serious-looking. Their eyes fell on Leora and the child. One guard stepped forward. "Who are you, human?" he asked, voice low but firm. I'm just helping," Leora said, standing tall but calm. He was scared. "I just helped him." The guard studied her, confused. "Humans do not usually have this effect," he said, his tone strange, almost reverent. "You calmed him. How?" Leora shrugged, smiling softly. "I don't know. I guess I just wanted him to feel safe." The child leaned against her, finally relaxing completely. His small, silver-blue tail twitched slightly, a sign of comfort. The crowd murmured. Some aliens stepped closer to get a better look at the human who had done something no alien could. Leora didn't notice the attention. She focused only on the child, humming quietly, letting him know he was safe. Unseen by Leora and the crowd, high above the market, a small observation deck overlooked the scene. Two figures watched silently. One was tall, regal, dressed in gold and silver robes that shimmered in the sunlight. The other, smaller but just as regal, held a crystal tablet in one hand. Their eyes were fixed on the child, then on Leora. "The human, she calmed him," the taller one said softly. "Yes," the smaller one replied. "The air, he has never been so still. She is remarkable." Back in the market, Leora finally stood up, the child holding her hand. Come on, she said gently. Let's get you somewhere safe. The crowd parted as she walked and whispers followed her. Some aliens were excited, others confused. No one understood exactly what had just happened, but everyone knew it was extraordinary. A human had done what no alien could. And for the first time in a long while the child smiled. After the market chaos, Leora walked with the small alien child in her arms. The streets were slowly returning to normal, but whispers followed her wherever she went. She had never seen so many eyes on her before. Some aliens stared in disbelief. How could a human calm a child that no alien could touch? She did not know and she did not care. She only wanted the child to feel safe. The child's breathing was steady now. His small silver-blue scales shimmered softly under the sun. He looked up at Leora, tilting his head as if he were trying to understand her. She smiled gently. "You're okay now," she said. "No one will hurt you." The child blinked slowly and then let out a small giggle. Leora laughed softly too. The sound was gentle and it seemed to make him even calmer. Around them, aliens continued to whisper, some taking a cautious step closer. One older alien with green skin and long, thin limbs approached. "Why does he listen to you?" he asked, his voice curious but polite. No alien could calm him like this. Not even his nurse. "I don't know," Leora said honestly. "I just wanted him to feel safe." She looked down at the child. "That's all." The child reached out his tiny hands and grabbed her fingers. Leora held them carefully. The connection was quiet but strong. Around them the crowd began to relax. The spilled jars and broken fruit no longer seemed important. Leora's calm had spread. It was as if she carried an invisible shield that made the world slower, softer, and safer. From a distance, market guards watched carefully. They were trained to protect everyone, but they did not understand what they were seeing. One of the taller guards whispered to his companion, "I have never seen a human do this." She calmed him, just by holding him. "Humans are strange," the other guard replied. "But perhaps, powerful in ways we cannot measure." Leora noticed none of this. She was focused entirely on the child. He leaned against her chest, finally still. His small tail flicked slightly, a sign of comfort. She whispered to him, "It's okay. You're safe. You don't have to be afraid anymore." The child looked up at her with wide, shining eyes. Then slowly he smiled. It was the first real smile anyone had seen from him in weeks. People around them gasped quietly. A few aliens bowed slightly, unsure why but feeling the importance of the moment. High above the market, in a hidden observation deck, two figures watched silently. The taller one wore gold and silver robes that sparkled even in the soft light. The smaller figure, holding a crystal tablet, looked tense. The child's sudden calm had caught their attention immediately. "The human," she calmed him, the taller figure said, voice soft but full of authority. "Yes," the smaller one said, voice trembling slightly. "The heir, he has never been like this. Yet still. She is remarkable. We must learn more about her." Back in the market, Leora guided the child toward a quieter street. His small hand remained in hers, and she could feel him relaxing further with every step. The city seemed different now. The lights felt warmer, the sounds softer, and even the aliens who had been wary of her now seemed curious rather than hostile. The child pointed at a small fountain in the middle of the street, water sparkling under the sun. "Water?" he said in a tiny voice. Leora knelt down beside him. "Yes," she said. "Let's get a little closer." The child leaned over, watching the water ripple and splash. He laughed softly again, a sound so pure it made Leora smile. Around them, other humans were rare, and the aliens still regarded her with wonder. Some whispered that humans were fragile, others that they were clever. But no one could explain why this human could calm the Emperor's heir. They had not seen the way she moved, the way she spoke, the quiet strength in her presence. "Do you want to sit for a moment?" Leora asked, pointing to a nearby bench. The child nodded and she sat down with him on her lap. He rested his head against her chest, finally calm and quiet. Leora held him gently, feeling the warmth of his small body. She could sense the fear leaving him, replaced by curiosity and comfort. Even as the crowd dispersed, a few aliens lingered nearby, unsure if they should approach or keep their distance. They had seen something extraordinary. Something humans could do that aliens could not. It was subtle, not loud or violent, but powerful in its own way. Leora had not used any tools, no alien devices, no force. Only her humanity, her warmth, and her calmness. The child, now fully relaxed, looked up at her with bright eyes. "You, nice," he said simply. Leora chuckled softly. "Thank you," she said. You're very brave too. As the sun moved lower in the sky, Leora realized that this day would not be forgotten easily. The market, once chaotic and loud, had turned quiet and peaceful because of her simple action. She had not known it at the time, but her calm had touched more than the child. It had touched everyone who had witnessed it. Far above, the Emperor and Empress continued to watch, silent and still. The heir had never reacted to anyone this way. His trust in Leora was immediate, deep, and unbroken. They exchanged a glance, understanding something important. Humans were extraordinary. They had abilities that aliens could not measure, powers that were subtle but real. For Leora it was a simple act of kindness. For the child it was safety and comfort. For the world it was a glimpse of something new, something humans brought naturally, warmth, empathy and calm. And as the child's laughter echoed softly through the quiet street, Leora knew she had done something important, even if she did not yet understand the full meaning of it. The next morning, Leora woke up with the memory of the market still fresh in her mind. She had never meant to make a scene. She had simply wanted to help a crying child. Yet, as she went about her day, she noticed something unusual. Aliens in the streets stared at her more than before. Some whispered to each other, pointing subtly in her direction. She felt a mix of curiosity and unease. She tried to ignore it and visited a nearby workshop to look at some tools and small gadgets. But before she could focus, a group of palace guards appeared at the entrance. They were tall, serious, and moving with precision. Leora froze, unsure why they were there. One stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Leora human," the guard said, voice formal but polite. "The Emperor requests your presence." Leora blinked in surprise. "My presence?" she asked. "I don't understand. I was just helping a child yesterday." The guard inclined his head. "The child you helped is the Emperor's heir. Your actions have been noted. Please come with us." Her heart skipped a beat. The Emperor's heir? She had hugged him in the market, but she had no idea he was so important. Her mind raced, and she felt a strange mixture of excitement and nervousness. She nodded and followed the guards without saying another word. The palace was unlike anything Leora had imagined. Towers of polished metal and glass rose above her, reflecting the morning sun. Guards and officials moved through the halls silently. The air smelled faintly of flowers and technology combined, an unfamiliar but pleasant scent. Leora felt small in the vast space, but she kept her steps steady. Finally they arrived at a grand chamber. The doors opened and Leora stepped inside. There, standing in the middle of the room, was the Emperor. He was tall and regal, with golden robes that shimmered in the soft light. Beside him stood the Empress, elegant and calm. Between them, the small child from the market sat quietly, eyes wide but calm, clutching a small toy. Leora froze for a moment, unsure what to do. The Emperor's gaze was steady, and she felt as if he was looking into her very soul. "You are the human who calmed my son?" he asked, his voice deep and commanding. Yes," Leora said softly. "I didn't know he was so important. I just wanted him to feel safe." She glanced at the child, who looked up at her with bright eyes. For a moment he smiled. Leora returned the smile gently, feeling a strange connection she could not explain. The Emperor studied her carefully. "Your presence has had a remarkable effect on him," he said. "He has never been so calm in the presence of anyone else. Not his nurses, not his teachers. But you have something different." I don't know what that is," Leora admitted. I think I understand fear and how it feels. Maybe he knew I was trying to help." The Empress stepped forward. "It is more than that. There is something in humans that our records do not capture. Their calm, their warmth, it reaches others in ways we cannot understand." She looked at Leora with a mixture of curiosity and respect. "You are extraordinary." Leora shook her head gently. "I'm not extraordinary. I'm just human." The Emperor smiled slightly. "Perhaps that is exactly why. You are human. And humans, it seems, have a power we cannot measure." He gestured to the child, who now climbed onto Leora's lap without hesitation. She held him gently, feeling the small warmth of his body and the quiet trust in his eyes. The child giggled softly and reached up to touch Leora's face. She laughed, careful not to startle him. "See," she said. "You're safe. I won't let anything hurt you." Around them, palace officials whispered quietly, amazed by what they were witnessing. No alien had ever held the Emperor's heir like this without ceremony or fear. Leora's calm and simple care was unlike anything they had seen. The Emperor nodded thoughtfully. "You have changed something in him. You have given him confidence and comfort that no one else could." I wish to learn more about your kind, human. Leora looked up, surprised. You want to know about humans? Yes, the Emperor said. Humans have a way of connecting with others. Your presence is enlightening. It shows us that there is more to strength than power, more to influence than technology. The child leaned against her chest, finally relaxed and content. Leora realized that she had not just calmed him, she had built a bridge between their worlds, simply by being herself. She felt a quiet pride but also a deep sense of responsibility. The Empress smiled. Perhaps you will stay at the palace for a while. Not as a servant but as a companion and teacher for the heir. He trusts you and that trust is rare. You could guide him, help him grow. Leora hesitated, thinking of her simple life before this. But looking at the child, at the trust in his eyes, she nodded. I will do my best. The Emperor's eyes softened. That is all we ask. You have done more than you know. As Leora held the child, feeling his small hands in hers, she realized that something remarkable had begun. A human, in a world of aliens and rulers, had made a difference not with force but with care. The palace, once distant and intimidating, now felt like a place where she could belong, simply by being human. Outside, the city continued its busy life, unaware of what had just happened in the palace chamber. Inside, a small human and the Emperor's heir sat together, bridging worlds with laughter, trust, and warmth. And for the first time, the Emperor and Empress saw that humans were not fragile or insignificant. They were extraordinary in ways they had never imagined. Days passed since Leora had first calmed the Emperor's heir. She had stayed at the palace, learning the routines of the child and helping him adjust to life surrounded by servants, guards, and officials. The child, whose name was Kale, had become comfortable only with her. No one else could soothe him, no matter how skilled they were. But with Leora he laughed, played, and explored without fear. Leora quickly noticed how different humans were. She did not have the alien powers of strength, speed, or advanced senses. She could not fly, see in the dark, or understand alien technology as quickly as the palace staff. But she had something they lacked: patience, calmness, and a natural way to connect with others. One morning, Kale refused to leave his room. He clung to Leora's arm, eyes wide and trembling. Servants tried to coax him with toys and words, but nothing worked. Leora knelt down beside him. "Hey, Kale," she said softly. "I'm right here. You're safe. You don't have to be afraid." Kale's small hands reached for her, and she held him gently. Slowly, he leaned against her, and the shaking left his body. He whispered something in his own language, and Leora only smiled. She did not need to understand every word. She felt his fear, and she knew it would pass. The palace officials watched in silence, amazed. They were used to advanced methods, machines that could detect emotions, medicines to calm nervous children, and alien rituals that supposedly soothed the young heir. None of it had worked. But a simple human hug, combined with calm words, achieved what technology and tradition could not. Later, in the palace courtyard, Leora and Kale sat near a small fountain. Kale was finally smiling, tossing pebbles into the water. Leora clapped softly as the ripples spread. "See? You're safe. You can play. No one is going to hurt you," she said. The child laughed, a sound so bright and pure that the nearby birds seemed to pause in admiration. A group of palace scholars approached quietly. They were curious but cautious. One of them, an older alien with blue skin and long, delicate fingers, spoke first. "Human," he said, "you do something unusual. You calm him, without technology, without tools, without rituals. How is this possible?" Leora shook her head, smiling softly. "I don't know. I just care. I want him to feel safe. I try to understand what he feels." The scholar frowned thoughtfully. "It is remarkable. Aliens cannot always reach others with words or actions. But your presence, your calmness, it has power." Leora looked down at Kale. He had picked up a small leaf and was examining it with curiosity. "It's not power," she said quietly. "It's just being human. I feel what he feels. I try to help him." The Emperor, who had been watching from a distance, stepped forward. "You are correct," he said. "Humans are unusual in their simplicity and strength. They do not need machines or rituals. Their presence alone changes others. This gift is rare and valuable." The Empress nodded. "It is not magic. It is understanding, empathy, and care. It is something our species rarely achieves naturally. And yet, she has done it instinctively." Over the next days, Leora taught Kale through play, stories, and simple lessons. She did not use alien methods or complicated devices. Instead, she guided him with patience, calmness, and encouragement. Each time Kale became frustrated or afraid, Leora's presence alone helped him regain composure. Guards and officials began to notice the pattern. "This human, she is remarkable," one guard whispered to another. "She does not command him. She does not punish. Yet the heir responds to her fully. We have never seen this." One afternoon, Kale became upset over a broken toy. The palace staff rushed in with tools to fix it, but Leora simply sat beside him. She took his small hands in hers. "It's okay," she said softly. "It's just a toy. We can fix it together." Slowly, Kale stopped crying. His tears dried and he smiled as they worked together. The staff watched, astonished. The child's trust in her surpassed anything they could create with their skills or technology. The Emperor observed all of this silently. "It is as I suspected," he said. "Humans have a gift we cannot measure. Their calmness, their understanding, their ability to connect, it is unmatched. Perhaps this is why humans survive and thrive in ways other species cannot." The Empress added, "They are simple in many ways, yet powerful in others. This human has shown us that strength does not always lie in technology or force. Sometimes, it lies in heart, patience, and presence." Leora did not know that she had become a symbol within the palace. Aliens who had once looked down on humans were beginning to see them differently. Her calmness and care were making them rethink their assumptions. Without intending to, she was teaching the palace an important lesson. Humans were not weak or fragile, they were extraordinary in ways few could understand. By evening, Kale sat happily on Leora's lap, watching the sunset from the palace balcony. Leora held him gently, feeling the small warmth of his body. The city below shimmered with lights, but none of it mattered. In this moment, she realized the truth of what the Emperor had said. Humans were special, not because they were the strongest or the fastest, but because they could connect, care, and calm in ways no one else could. And as Kale laughed softly, reaching out to touch her face, Leora smiled. She did not yet understand the full impact of her gift. But she knew that, by being herself, she had changed the life of the Emperor's heir, and perhaps, in time, the perception of her entire species. Humans, she realized, had power in ways the universe had not yet recognized. And she was living proof. Weeks passed at the palace, and Leora's presence became a constant in Kale's life. She had grown used to the routine, though it was nothing like her quiet days before the market incident. Every morning, Kale waited for her in his chamber, eager to see what she had planned for the day. Sometimes they read simple stories, sometimes they played with small toys, and sometimes they just walked in the palace gardens, laughing and exploring together. Kale had changed since the first day she held him in her arms. He was calmer, more curious, and more confident. He no longer flinched at loud noises, and his laughter had returned. Leora realized that it was not just her care that helped him, but the human way of connecting, through patience, trust, and warmth. She did not need to command him or force him to behave. He responded naturally, freely, because she had earned his trust. Other aliens in the palace began to notice. At first they were cautious, watching her every move. Some whispered doubts. "Can a human really influence the heir?" they asked. "He should only respond to those trained in our ways." But as days passed, even the most skeptical could not deny it. Kale laughed, played, and learned under Leora's guidance in ways that no alien had been able to achieve. One day the Emperor called a meeting with the council. Leora and Kale sat quietly in the back, though all eyes were on her. The Emperor's voice filled the grand chamber. "We have observed the heir's progress," he said. "It is unlike anything we expected. His calm, his curiosity, and his courage have all grown. And it is due to one factor, the human who cares for him." The council members exchanged surprised glances. Humans were often underestimated. Many believed them fragile and weak, unable to influence events on this grand scale. Yet here, in the heart of the palace, a human had achieved what centuries of alien training could not. The Emperor continued, "Humans may lack our technology, our speed, or our advanced senses. But they have something rare, an ability to connect, to comfort, to influence without force. This is a gift we must recognize and respect. Leora, you have proven that humans are extraordinary in ways we have overlooked." Leora felt a mixture of pride and humility. She had never sought recognition. All she wanted was to help Kale feel safe. Yet now, she realized that her actions had done more than that. They had begun to change the perception of her entire species. In the following days, palace staff began consulting her more often. They wanted to understand how she calmed Kale so effectively. Leora shared only what she knew: patience, calmness, attention, and care. She did not offer tricks or secrets, only human ways of understanding others. Slowly the palace began to shift. Aliens started to treat humans differently, no longer as weak or inferior, but as beings with unique gifts worth respecting. Kale loved spending time with her. He would cling to her hand as they walked through the gardens, pointing at flowers and birds, asking questions she could answer simply. She encouraged his curiosity, letting him explore, letting him make mistakes and helping him learn without fear. The palace staff marveled at the ease with which he learned. One evening as the sun set over the city, Leora and Kale sat on the balcony, looking down at the shimmering streets below. Kale leaned against her, small hands wrapped around her arm. "You make me brave," he said softly in his simple words. Leora smiled and stroked his hair. "You are brave already," she said. "I just help you see it." The Emperor and Empress watched from a distance, hidden behind a balcony pillar. The Emperor whispered, "She has done more than comfort him. She has taught him trust, courage and calmness. She is changing him, and through him she is changing us." The Empress nodded. "Yes. Her humanity is a gift. It is subtle, quiet, yet more powerful than any weapon or machine. She has reminded us that strength can come from understanding, empathy and care." Word of Leora's impact spread beyond the palace. Aliens in the city began to reconsider their assumptions about humans. Traders, guards and scholars spoke in hushed tones about the human who calmed the Emperor's heir. She had become a symbol of a new way of thinking. A reminder that humans, though seemingly simple, possessed qualities that could influence worlds. Leora never sought fame. She continued her days quietly, teaching Kale, laughing with him, and showing him that he could trust and explore without fear. Yet she understood now that her simple actions had ripple effects far beyond her own understanding. The Emperor's heir was thriving, and the palace was beginning to see humans in a new light. One morning as Kale ran to meet her in the garden, Leora realized something profound. A human's gift was not in machines, power, or speed, it was in heart, empathy and presence. By being herself, she had changed the life of a child, the mind of a ruler, and the perception of an entire species. As Kale climbed onto her lap, laughing and pointing at the flowers, Leora smiled. She did not need recognition. She did not need medals or praise. Her humanity was enough. And that humanity, calm, caring, and understanding, was more powerful than anyone had imagined. In the quiet palace gardens, with the city lights beginning to glow below, Leora realized that humans could leave a mark on the universe not by force, but by simply being human. And in that moment she understood her true gift, the ability to touch hearts, calm fears, and change the world with nothing more than warmth, patience, and care. Kale hugged her tightly and she held him close, knowing that this small act of humanity had created a legacy that would be remembered for generations.